Hello everyone and welcome. I've got a fun one for you today. So we're going to be using the Under the Sea Glimmer Plates from my Seahorse Kisses collection with Spellbinders, and we're going to create these fun pop-up Shadow Box flat shaker cards. That is a mouthful, but they're actually very easy to create, and I'm going to show you how. So like I mentioned, this is a glimmer plate. So we're going to be using our Spellbinders glimmer machine. I've gone ahead and engaged it so that it starts warming up. These are the glimmer plates. This is Under the Sea, and it comes with matching dies as well. It has 5 glimmer plates so that you can create a little underwater scene, and it is so versatile. I will have a link to the entire collection, the intro video that I did for this collection, in the description box below in case you missed it and you want to learn more about this collection. So the game changer for glimmer for me is using black opaque foil. Now this is a double pack. It comes in black and white. I do believe that they also sell just the black and just the white, but I think it's well worth it to get the double pack. This black foil is a game changer for me because it extends the use of my glimmer plates. This way I can use them more playfully. I don't have to have a high gold foil look, which, don't get me wrong, is super beautiful and it's very elegant, but when I want to go for something more playful, then this allows me to extend the use of these plates. So I've got a piece of 80-pound Nina Solar White super smooth cardstock here, and I'm going to go ahead and set these up for foiling. So instead of building mine on the platform, going plate, foil, and then cardstock, I build mine backwards, upside down, and I build it off of the platform. So I'm going to use my cardstock, then my foil, and then my plates. I like to trim my foil down to fit the size of my glimmer plate and then tape it into place the same way as if I were going to be die cutting. I tape all my die cuts into place. This is because when you disengage that machine, if you don't have them taped in place, they can shift. It creates a little bump when you disengage it, and you'll see I'm going to include the whole process here. But for me, this makes sure that all of my plates are taped down and they do not move. When I'm done taping these all in place, I'm just going to take that whole piece of cardstock, I'm going to flip it over and lay it plate side down onto my platform there. Now you'll notice I'm just taping mine anywhere they will fit. That is because I know I'm going to be die cutting these, and I'm making sure to leave space between each of the plates so that I can die cut. Now if I were doing a 1-layer card, I'd want to arrange these how I want the finished pattern to look and then tape them in place. So here's another tip. I haven't used the glimmer machine today in this video yet, so it's not fully heated up. So I'm actually going to run this through 2 heat cycles, and I only do that the first time I'm using it for the day. So I'm going to go ahead, push the timer. I'm going to let it go through its process. When it goes solid, I'm going to disengage the plate, then I'm going to re-engage the plate and hit the timer again. And again, I only do this that first time that I'm using the glimmer machine for the day, and that will avoid me having any underfoiling because I know that the machine is nice and hot. So now that it has stopped flashing, it's ready to go through my Platinum 6. So I've disengaged it. I'm going to run it through. Not super slow, but don't zip it through there. Give it enough time to get some pressure and some heat to transfer that foil. And then I'm going to just remove the plates. Now, I like to lay it down, let it cool off for a couple seconds, and then I can just peel back the dies and reveal all of my foiled goodness. Again, I can't tell you how much I love the black foil for just giving it a whole new look. And that's because I want to use Copics to color this, and I love the black outline with vibrant Copic coloring. And there you go. Now it's time to color them. And I've sped this up quite a bit. I'm going to go through the colors that I'm using as I'm using them. I do not have favorite color combos. I just grab whatever and make it work. So for the seaweed type stuff here, I'm starting off with a little bit of, what did I do here? Let's see. I started off with a little YG13 and then blended that out with YG11 and then added G20 to smooth it all out. I went through with another layer of that and decided I wanted some more depth. So I added a little YG17 and then I blended that out again. I do ultimately come in here and add an even deeper dark, but for now, that's what we're working with: YG13, YG11, G20, and YG17. Now for the fish, I wanted it to blend from orange into yellow. Sometimes that can be kind of hard to achieve a very smooth blend. And you can see here, I'm testing it out on paper. And I know I'm not going to be able to do it with just 2 colors. So what I end up doing is for the fish, I'm going to start off with YR04, which is going to be my darkest. And then I'm going to pull that out with a YR02. So I'm going to blend that up. After that, I'm going to come in with the YR000 to smooth that out. And then I'm going to add my Y23 as my transition color. This is going to transition me from the orange to the yellow. I'm going to do another layer of all of those, YR4, YR2, YR000, Y23, and then I'm going to go over the whole thing with Y11. Now that's going to brighten it up, and it's going to give me that smooth transition from that deep red-orange into that bright yellow. We're going to go ahead and do the shells now, and for the first shell, this one's really easy. I just used R02 and then blended that out with R01. So this one was super easy. I'll add a little R00 at the end, and that's it. Come through with one more layer. And then it's time to move on to our other shell here. So I'm going to start off with E31 for my shadows. I'm going to pull that out with a little E51. So I'm just smoothing that out. I'm going to go over it with an E50 to blend it all together. And then I'm going to add some even deeper darks with a little bit of E33. So after I do my second round of those 3 colors, I'm going to come in with a little E33 and add that just to the deepest, darkest areas. Smooth it out and be done with that one. While I've got that E33, I'm going to go ahead and do the little pebbles here, these little rocks. And then I'm going to move on to the last shell. And the last shell we're going to do in a blue-green. And for that, I'm going to use B53. So I'm going to start with B53 as my dark. Again, you can see I'm testing my color combos over here on a scratch piece of paper. But I'm going to start with the BG53 for my darks. And I'm tucking this in where it would be behind the other shells. I'm going to use BG11 to pull that out, then BG10 to smooth them together and blend them, and then some BG72 for even darker darks. I noticed that this one was a little flat compared to the other ones, so I just added in some BG72, and then I will blend that out with the BG53, the BG11, and then the BG10. Now here's where I come in with a little BG78 to add a little bit more depth to that seaweed, and that's just because I felt like it needed just a little more punch. And again, I'll use those same colors to blend that out again. All right, so that is the coloring. This is the same style of coloring I did for every image. And now I'm just going to use those coordinating dies to cut out all of my images. And as I mentioned before, I like to tape mine in place so that they don't shift. A good low tack washi tape is perfect for this. And now that we have all of our pieces cut out, we can move on to constructing the pop-up shadow box portion. All right, so I have a piece of cardstock here that I've cut to 5 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches long. And I'm going to score the 5 1/4 inch side in at 1/4 of an inch and then at 1/2 of an inch. So here I've gone 1/4, scored, gone over another quarter and scored. Now I'm going to rotate the cardstock and score again at 1/4 in from the edge and then another quarter in from there. Now, Jennifer McGuire has a fantastic video on creating these pop-up shadow box cards, so if you want really in-depth instructions, make sure you check that out. I'm switching it up just a bit by combining it with a flat shaker card in the background, but in order for it to be a shadow box, we need an opening. So I'm using the Spellbinders Fluted Classics ovals. I almost said rectangles. That's another favorite of mine that I use a lot, but this time we're using the Fluted Classics ovals. I've taped that into place, ran it through my die cutting machine, and now we have our window. Now, we could leave it like this, but I want to add some 3D embossing to the front of this panel. So I'm going to go ahead and enforce my score lines here. I'm going to fold them back. So the first one I'm going to fold away from me, score that down, or burnish that down with my bone folder. So here, fold it away, burnish it with my bone folder, and then the second fold I'm going to fold towards me, and then burnish that again with my bone folder, and that's going to create these little little Z. It's almost like little Z's on the edges. Now, the reason that I am doing this now before I do my 3D embossing, and for that I'm using the Castaway 3D embossing folder. This is also with my Seahorse Kisses collection from Spellbinders. The reason I'm scoring those lines and reinforcing them before I do the 3D embossing is because it's going to be easier to get a clean fold on those lines if they've been reinforced. We're about to add some very deep impressions into this cardstock, and if we didn't enforce the lines first, it would create indentions all over, right? So here we've embossed this pattern into the cardstock, and it would be hard to get a clean fold on those lines, but because I folded them and reinforced them beforehand, it's going to be easy to find those folds again and go ahead and re-burnish those and flatten out just a little bit of that 3D embossing that came around on the little flaps there. And these flaps are going to be the mechanism that causes the pop-up. I love this 3D embossing folder. The impression is so crisp, so deep, and it gives so much texture to the front of that panel there. So again, I'm just going to reinforce those folds, and then we're going to work on the inside of our flat shaker panel. But before we do that, I do want to do a quick little dry run. So I'm going to go ahead and lay my elements out so that I can get an idea of where I want everything to go. And here I can play around with putting some things inside of the pop-up shadow box. I can put some of the elements on the outside. And then in the end, I actually end up putting some of the elements in the flat shaker portion. So I've got a lot of depth and dimension going here. I'm going to have some inside the shaker. I'm going to have some popped up with 3D foam tape on top of the shaker. And then I'm going to have others that are adhered to the outside of the panel. At this point, I was going to do all white on white. You guys know I love I love a good white background with bright colors popping off of it. But in the end, I did decide to do some ink blending. So here I'm trying to mess around. I haven't created this particular card yet. So I'm messing around with exactly what I want to do. And I'm thinking I'm going to use that You Are Simply Amazing, which is from the Seahorse Kisses Sentiments Glimmer Plate from my Seahorse Kisses collection. I don't end up using that one in the end, but let's go ahead and take care of that background panel. Okay, to do that, we're going to be using some Distress Oxides, and we're going to start off with Pumice Stone. Pumice Stone is a great neutral sandy color. It's not too warm, it's not too cool. You could probably go darker or a more warmer sand color, but this works perfect for what I wanted it. And I'm going to throw this into fast motion because I'm working on the fly here. Right about here is where I got the idea. What if I tried to add in some topography back there? Maybe some different levels of, instead of just one gradient blend from blue to the sand, what if I try to add in some land, some seafloor? That's what I'm trying to say. Some ocean floor here. So I'm using a piece of Post-it masking tape, and I'm creating different layers or levels of the ocean floor. Admittedly, a lot of this is going to end up getting covered up, but I'm glad that I did it because now I have this trick in my arsenal, and I can implement this on another card at a different time, and I'll know what it looks like. So it's always good to experiment, even if a lot of the stuff that you're going to see, or a lot of it you're not going to be able to see in the end. So it wasn't a total waste. All right, so here's where I'm deciding to add almost like there were cliffs in the side, on the side there, because the ocean floor isn't all flat. And this way, some of it's going to come up and show through the oval. And now I'm going to come in with a little bit of Speckled Egg and Uncharted Mariner for my water. So I'm just going to ink blend this in. I'm not being overly careful about getting a smooth, perfect blend. Rays of light could be penetrating depending, well, if it's really deep in the ocean, there would be no rays of light penetrating. But, hey, this is my card. It's my world and I'm creating it. So I can do whatever I want. I'm making sure to overlap some of, bringing that down over the ocean floor too, the sand portion, because all of that would be immersed in water. So it's okay if those overlap. And now we're going to add some water speckles and splashes. Again, we're not working on watercolor paper here, so we're not going to get those watermarks. We're going to get ink splatters. So this is Nina 80 pound, super smooth, solar white. Did I say solar white? Nina solar white, super smooth 80 pound cardstock. Why is everything such a mouthful? Okay, so I'm going to again do a little dry run here, lay everything out. And as I mentioned, you can see here that you don't end up seeing too much of that, especially when this is laying flat. But once we get everything put together, and if you're looking at it at different angles, which because this will be a pop-up flat shaker, you can look at it at all different angles. You will see some of that in the background. But again, a lot of it does get covered up. Okay, so now it is time to start assembling our flat shaker portion. Now I'm using the A2 flat shaker panels, A2 acetate shaker panels from the Rabbit Hole Designs. And I shared these in my last video, and we had done another flat shaker card. So if you missed that one, make sure you go ahead and watch that one as well. I'm deciding exactly where to put everything and how to layer it. And like I said earlier, I did decide to put some of it inside the shaker panel itself. So here I'm going to use a little bit of 3D foam. And that is the nice thing about these shaker panel, you guys. They dome a little bit. They dome up just a bit, and it allows you, like I was able to put that with that foam tape. I was able to put that in there inside that flat shaker panel, and then the sequins and stuff still have room to shake around and behind that little image there. So it's actually, I really, really like these A2 acetate panels, you guys. I hope she comes out with them in different sizes. You hear that, Marianne? I hope you come out with them in like slimline size and mini slimline size. That would be really awesome. So I'm leaving all of this in for you guys because I know a lot of you like to see it. This is me working out where I'm going to put everything. So you can see here, I decided that this should go over a little bit more. And I'm testing it in between. I'll place something, test it, place something, test it. And that's just to make sure if I put it all together and then I put that panel on top and all of it's off-centered or most of it's hidden, then I can't really go back. So I will stop in between and try things or test them. So I'll kind of lay them there, make sure it's all visible, and then adhere it. All right, so I have adhered all 3 sides of that shaker panel. I've left the top open, and now I'm adding in all of my shaker bits. I'm adding sequins, I'm adding gems, I'm adding pearls, I'm adding everything. Y'all can even put the chunky bits in here. So all those chunky pearls and stuff, they will fit inside here. It is still pretty flat, but it domes just enough to give you room to add all the bits. Sequins, pearls, gems, everything. I can't speak highly enough about these. All right, so now I've got all of my insides in there, so I'm going to remove that last bit of adhesive and close that panel. Now, I don't normally make shaker cards. I think I've made 2 traditional shaker cards in my life, and I just could never really get the hang of them. I was always spilling stuff all over the place. So here, this just makes it super easy, and look at all of that. I love the way it shakes. Okay, so now we got to remove that protective film. These come with a protective film so that you don't get fingerprints or scratches all over. You'll use your fingernail or something sharp to kind of dig at the edge there to get it started. And once you get it started, you can just simply peel it back. And when it comes away, it is crystal clear. So that will protect it and keep it from getting smeared or fingerprinted, scratched, whatever. All right, we're already doing a lot of techniques that I don't normally do, so why not add some glitter all over these? I'm using a Spectrum Noir pen to just add a little bit of sparkle just to the fish and the jellyfish. And I thought this was a fun little touch. Okay, so before we start adhering all of our little sea life there, we need to put together the base of our card. I'm going to use the Gina K Terrific Tape here. This is the 1/8 inch double-sided adhesive, and I'm going to add a strip of this to those outside tabs of our front panel. You'll want something very strong. You could use liquid adhesive, but I find that the double-sided tape here, it grabs that acetate and holds it firm. With the liquid adhesive, there would be a little bit of drying time and it could slip out of place. So I find this to be the best method. If you need a little wiggle room, you could add a drop or two over top of the tape. But this is just, like I said, I'm impatient. I didn't tell you that, but I think you guys know that by now. I'm impatient when it comes to things like this. The tedious steps, I'm just not very patient with. So I like that it grabs right away. I like to adhere it first in the center and then adhere it from the center out. So here, I'll remove that tape. And then I'm going to adhere it in the center first, and then I'm going to run my finger from the center out to the edges. I'll use my bone folder to burnish that, and there we go. Look at that. So cute. It's a little shaker card with a pop-up shadow box panel. It's so fun. And now I can just adhere all of the rest of my pieces. And I've used a mix of fun foam to adhere the little cluster here on the inside, and then I'll use liquid adhesive to adhere the elements on the outside of the panel. Make sure that you only add the glue to the part that will be actually on the panel. You don't want to glue it to your inside of, you don't want to glue it down on the inside of your shaker sheet here. Then your panel won't pop up, and that defeats the purpose. So again, make sure your glue is only on the portion that is going to be glued to the outside of the panel. Finally, it's time to add the sentiment, and you can see here I'm trying to still work this one in, but I didn't want it to cover too much of the image. Looking back at it on camera, I think it would have been just fine. I could have made it work. But I opted to go with this So Happy For You. This is from Honeybee Stamps, and I believe it's from their Daisy Bouquet stamp set. I'll have everything that I used in today's video linked in the video description below. So to do this, we're going to have it float across the window. And for that, we're going to need a little bit of acetate. So I'm going to trim down a piece of acetate that is just shy of 4 1/4, and then probably about a quarter to 2/3 of an inch tall. Words are escaping me. I'm going to add some double-sided adhesive to each side, making sure that it will not show, right? So I don't want the adhesive to come out further than the side panels there. So I'm making sure that when I adhere it down, that the adhesive will be hidden behind the solid parts of our window there, the outer edge of our window. And I'm deciding where I'm going to put my sentiment. So what I like to do is lay that acetate across the opening and then add a little bit of liquid adhesive to my sentiment and then just lightly set it down on that acetate and then pick the whole thing up. Now I know that my sentiment is going to be placed exactly where I want it on the acetate within the window. Once that dries, I'm going to remove the release paper from my double-sided adhesive and then attach that on the inside of my shadow box window here. I just tuck one side in, get it where I want it, push down to grab that adhesive, and then I will bend this and tuck the other side. And again, make sure it's straight and then push down. All right, and there you have it. All right, this card was so much fun to make. I love all of the dimension here. And like I said, I love bright pops of color against that white, but the nice blended background there really makes everything stand out. And these flat shaker sheets, they make it so easy, you guys. Look at all that. So much fun, so fun. And then that 3D embossing on the front of the folder there just adds even more texture. And these really are very simple to create. You can be as elaborate as you want. I went a little more elaborate on this one because I had already made one version previous, which is this card here. Now this one is a lot more simple. So I just did a basic square cut from the front of that panel and then just adhered my pieces. So there's no special, there's no embossing, there isn't anything inside the shaker sheet. So it's nice to start with a simple one and then church it up a bit. You know, change a little something here or there. You'll also notice that this one pops up just a little bit higher, and that's because I did 1/2 inch. So instead of 5 1/4 by 5 1/2, I did 5 3/4 by 5 1/2. And I scored in 1/2 inch and then another 1/2 inch on each side. So that gave me a pop-up of 1/2 inch, whereas this one only has the pop-up of 1/4 inch. So one is deeper than the other, but one is more elaborate than the other. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, all of the links to the products used in today's video will be in the video description below. I will also have this up with still pictures on my blog shortly. So if you want to have still pictures to reference, make sure you visit there. That'll be down there as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.